Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, listener. It's your host, Lara Jane, and I am here with Maura. And Maura is a dietitian, and we are going to talk about healthy habits and self-care. And so, Maura, all your information is already in the show notes, the links that you sent us, your bio, and how to get a hold of you. So we're going to just jump right in and get started. So, Maura, tell us about some of this self-care and healthy ways.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I am excited to chat today. As you know, I'm a registered dietitian and I'm also an integrative health coach. And I absolutely love food. And I also love helping women feel well. And I have found over the years that so many of my clients have really struggled with eating habits, feeling confident in what to eat, feeling empowered, and stepping away from that restrictive dieting mentality, I find is so important in creating sustainable change. So I have worked in a variety of roles. I used to be Facebook's on-site dietitian. And last year I peeled off to really dive into my own private practice to create bigger impact. So I'm just really passionate about nutrition and just helping people make it work for them instead of them having to fit into a very small box and feel deprived and restricted. So I think mindful eating is definitely a theme for me and something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, I have to focus on how I feel. Because the second I focus on the number on the scale, I lose motivation. It doesn't change as fast as my feelings change, or it decides to stay stagnant, but I'm still moving and functioning. And so I love the idea. I love the mindfulness. I love focusing on things that aren't just that I have to weigh this much money. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This much weight, pounds or kilograms, whatever you do it in order to be healthy, because that's not a measure of health. There's so many other things. I love a dietitian that's focusing on the right stuff.
Yeah. And it's so, you bring up a good point, because so much of our clinical training is in weight loss and focusing a lot on numbers and cutting calories, but we're actually now finding that there's so many people who are living in all different size bodies that can be incredibly healthy and doing all the right things. And it can be very defeating when you do hop on a scale all the time. You may not see the number that you want to see. And that can actually deter you from making or maintaining habits that you were actually feeling pretty good about. So what I like to focus on is stepping away from this, scarcity or, reductionist mindset, and that we have to look smaller or feel smaller or fit into smaller clothes and therefore decrease our calories, and instead shifting our thinking to abundance, right? I want to feel more vibrant. I want to feel more energized. I want to feel happier. I want to feel in control of my eating. And when we focus on the power of nutrition and like all the things it can actually do for us, it actually becomes easier to fall into these patterns. But I think we're a lot of us are very focused on like quantitative goals and like hitting those benchmarks. But I think shifting to more qualitative ways of measuring progress and measuring success beyond, calories and a scale is really, like, I think, in my opinion, one of the most impactful ways of getting what you want in a very enjoyable way.
Right. Because smaller is not always healthier. And you see people that look so healthy fall over dead. And there's just like, it didn't mean longevity of life.
Right.
Maybe they had some healthy quality of life for a little bit, but I've measured some of my progress on, oh my gosh, my watch is a notch slower, or the towel wraps around me, or guess what? I can stand up without assistance, little things that are like, this is a win.
Right. Which are actually big things.
These. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I love the focus on the abundance, those things that I'm achieving because of this. And I love that. I can walk around the block now,
right.
Where you may have only been walking barely through the halls before. And so really what there is abundance in that. I have abundance of energy. So smart. And
and I think once you start feeling good, you continue to fall into those habits that elevate you. And if you think about our body, I mean, we're designed to thrive. We're designed to live a long, high quality life. We just have to create the environment internally and externally to make that happen. And when we are, fighting our hunger or so focused on what we shouldn't be eating, there's a lot of friction between what we want, what our body needs, and the choices we end up making. And that becomes overwhelming for so many of us. And so instead, if we can focus on like, what are things I can do that are small, but that feel good to me, that I can just continue repeating, it becomes easy to keep up with that. And before you know it, like you said, your belt or your watch notch is smaller, or, you're feeling more energized. Your capacity to do more things is greater. You can travel with more ease. And I think that's like, at the end of the day, it's about quality of life and feeling good. And I firmly believe we don't have to sacrifice the quality of our food or the enjoyment of our food to get to that result.
Right. And it's not about smaller or bigger, it's about optimization.
Absolutely.
And where is that balance that we all have? And what's optimized for me is not always optimized for you. And so it's really loving everybody and their progress and allowing them their path. Like I tell people sometimes, I still don't know what lesson I am supposed to be learning in this body yet, because I haven't mastered that I always look healthy thing. And so you just go, you know what? It's my lesson. And nobody else has to judge where I'm at.
Right.
And I need and do my best to do the same thing to others, no matter what path you're on, no matter where you're on in your journey. It's your journey, and I can support you in it no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think so many people have so many opinions about others, and especially bodies and what they look like or what they should look like. And what we're now seeing is, there's like you bring up a good point, that there's plenty of small people who are incredibly unhealthy, like metabolically, or have a lot of disease risk, or, elevated blood sugars, or diabetics, or whatever the case may be. And plenty of people who live in other size bodies who are wildly healthy and taking care of themselves and feeling so good. And I think we really have to step away from that judgment, because so many of us can also judge ourselves, and there's that internal dialogue can be so overwhelming sometimes that then hearing it from other people on top of that is just too much. So I think you bring up a very good point, that it's we should celebrate who we are and celebrate what we have. And all of us are evolving and growing, but that doesn't mean we have to make room for, shame or guilt or self-judgment.
And those things only make it harder to be your best self. Your best self is not shamed. Your best self is not wanting to be different.
Yeah.
It can be different, but it's when you're constantly wanting to be different, you've lost that self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And you can accept yourself. No, but there's a person, Forbes Riley, and one of the things that she says is, I love you just the way you are. But I love you too much to leave you there.
I love that.
So you don't have to change. I love you just fine, but I will support you on whatever journey you want to go on in your self-discovery and self-betterment. And when I say I want to be better, does that mean I'm not good? No, that just means I'm going to change like everybody else.
Yeah.
If we were stagnant, why even be here?
Absolutely.
Like I want to learn and grow. I want to change. I want to progress. So I think having that healthy mindset of that mindful eating and that mindful doing anything.
Absolutely.
Not just doing things in reaction, not just doing things because we have to, or because that's what the government food chart says, or because that's what about that 103-year-old woman who smokes and drinks beer and sits around and watches TV already? You know what? Her body was built for that. And we cannot judge other people on their habits because we're all made different. And if I was smoking and drinking and sitting around all day, I'd probably already be dead. Just, I carry, that stress and stuff that's in our lives can wreak more havoc on our bodies than food.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We've got to keep a healthy mindset, which kind of leads me into, we were going to talk a little bit about self-care.
Yeah.
And with self-care, I'd like a little bit add about self-care, but what I want to do is take a quick break, have a word from our sponsor, and let's come back and talk about self-care and how mindful eating fits into that. Be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Laura Jane Coaching. You know you're ready to silence your inner bully voice. Let Laura Jane support you with coaching. To schedule an introduction call, go to laurajanelayton.com.
All right, we're back. So Maura, talk to me about adding self-care to my life and how I can do that and stay vibrant.
Well, I really see, if you think about all the micro decisions that we have the chance to make every single day, all of them really point back to ourselves and our ability to feel grounded and our ability to feel cared for. And we have to prioritize ourselves higher than we might currently be, because without us feeling as balanced and happy as possible, it becomes really hard to follow through or execute and all the other things that matter to us. And so self-care is, I think, a term that gets thrown around a lot, or maybe there's a lot of, fluffiness to it. But at the end of the day, I think it's about being intentional with how you want to take care of yourself, figuring out what are my wants, what are my needs, and how can I make more room for that in a realistic way. And I think how we nourish our body with food is an incredible way to do that. How we nourish our mind with thoughts, what we give weight to and what we don't. I mean, we have negative thoughts that come and go all the time, but I like to use this, comparison to a garden, right? Like, what thoughts are you willing to nurture and invest in and put energy toward? And what does that look like? And then how does that change, your behaviors or your beliefs and then your reality? So when we remind ourselves that we are so incredibly important, we deserve to feel good as often as possible, we can't neglect our most fundamental needs and wants. And so that doesn't have to mean getting a massage every day, although that would be amazing. It can be as simple as just having 10 minutes of quiet first thing in the morning before a busy day starts, or doing some stretching or breathing exercises when you get off from work before you decide to make a food decision to let some steam off, or watching a comedy show or something. Like, it's a matter of pausing and checking in, like, what do I really need right now? What would feel good for me? And something that I have a lot of my clients do is make a list of actionable, easy things that they can do that take maybe 5 minutes, and then another short list that's 10 minutes. And they can kind of pick and choose, but depending on what they're feeling that day, what they need, they can be reminded of these small little adjustments that they can incorporate into their day that can actually make a very big difference.
I agree. I think, there's that meme out, got two ladders sitting next to each other. And one of them, the steps are maybe a foot apart, and the other one, they're 3 feet apart. And the one person that's up by the ladder with the smaller steps, very easy to climb up. And the other one, the guy's still jumping and trying for that first round, run. It's so high up, he can't even get to the first one. And I always look at that, how important baby steps are. Make it obtainable. Let's not call it baby steps, because that makes us sound like unsure footing that is too easy. I don't know, but obtainable steps. What can I actually master and move on? Or that peeling of the onion, where let me work on this one layer first and move forward. And I think that goes with eating habits, with self-care, with self-love. So what is that one thing that I can work on today that's going to make a big impact? One of the reasons I do my Monday episode of the challenge is it's one word. It's one thing that you can practice this week. It's going to make you feel better by the end of the week, or at least more empowered if you really start paying attention to the way we talk to ourselves, which comes to silence that bully and let it become your best friend. That same voice that beats you up can be the one that supports you. And yeah, you have to love yourself to make good food choices, because it's way too easy to not. It's like I'll start feeling deprived when everybody else around me is eating something else. And I think, you know what, Laura Jane, step back. You are the one that let yourself go. They didn't. You are the one that has to correct this. They don't have to correct anything. So once you stop feeling a victim and take self-responsibility, you're able to move through the jealousies and the comparison, because you're not that other person. They didn't do what you did. They prevented it. And so now you got to fix it. You never have a car that breaks down. You never have to take it to the shop to get fixed.
Right. And I think it's really important to approach that, or have our frame of mind to be in like a growth mindset versus like a fixed or negative mindset, because rarely do, bullying or self-deprivation lead to really powerful positive change when it comes to our health. Sometimes those negative thoughts, that bullying or that, guilt or shame or victimhood, let's say, can sort of keep us in that lower place. And I instead like to encourage my clients to think about, what if you were to approach your past or a past decision with more curiosity and more self-compassion? Like, how can we approach that, or figure out, what led to that choice, and what did you really need in that moment that you thought food might be able to solve, or alcohol might, you thought that could really solve it, and working backwards. And so the more we approach our health and our choices and our past in that way, the more we open ourselves up to put more tools in our toolkit to become more savvy and able to navigate life ahead with more self-compassion, as I mentioned. So yeah, our mind is like such a powerful place, and it really has a capacity to push us forward or hold us back. And we just have to be really thoughtful about what type of thoughts and thinking and framework we want to work with in order to, take that step forward and become, the version of ourselves that that is like the most vibrant version of ourselves. So yeah, I think those thoughts are really important. And so again, it's just giving weight to some more than others, and letting those that don't serve you just kind of come and go.
Yeah. What I was thinking while you were saying that is the world today is so focused on treating the symptom. And when we start getting mindful, we start noticing the trigger, or that thing that initially causes that downward spiral, or that causes take a side path. And as long as we're treating the symptom, which is just the number on the scale, or just the upset stomach and I need to take Tums or whatever brand you want to use. When we treat the symptom, we never learn to prevent it. And so as we walk back through our lives and we start, that's where I could have changed it yesterday and I would feel better today, then we can start making a better choices for our future. And yes, John Doe down the road can tell me that I should only eat lettuce and nothing else. And that's not sustainable, for me. So I have to find another plan. And so you can't just listen to other people's fad diets or I used to say the only thing consistent between all the diets is water and exercise.
Yeah.
And now there's a fasting one that goes with dry fast. And I go, okay, water's not even on that. So
right.
How do you get to that consistency that everybody thinks that is important for our bodies?
Well, I mean, the fact that there are so many diets, I think is a testament to how ineffective they are. And there's a lot of data around how most who have lost weight on a diet within a year gain it back and some. And that can be incredibly defeating. And so, when we focus on the quality of our food and take the time and have some support in figuring out what is driving some of our eating habits? How can we get to the root of really what's going on? And we blend those two worlds together, like the nutritional side of things, the enjoyment, and really taking care of ourselves. That's when so many things fall into place, and you never have to diet again, and you can feel and eat more in line with what your body needs. So, it brings up this conversation around like moving away from calorie restriction and moving into eating to optimize your nutritional intake. Again, while enjoying your food. I don't think people should just live on broccoli and chicken all day. I certainly couldn't. And I think it's coming back to this point of whether it's emotional eating or binge eating or mindless eating, there's a reason for it. And there doesn't have to be judgment or guilt or shame around it. Oftentimes, when we're leaning on food to solve something within us, it's your body's way of trying to stay resilient or protect yourself. And you can't blame yourself for that either. So it's figuring out, A, your body's always working for you. It's not trying to work against you. And B, we just have to align, our thinking and our habits and our awareness, having that line up so that we are able to eat more in tune with what really feels good. And then we're able to address those other things in non-food related ways.
Right. And I think when you talked about, people gain it all back a year later, I think a lot of times we have to really think about our why and figure out how to not feel deprived. Because the second you feel like something or there's a restriction, that's all you can think about. Is that thing you can't have.
Right.
And so, or the other thing that I hear all the time is, well, I messed up already today, so
might as well.
That was 1 second. You don't have to do it the rest of the day. I do that. But at the same time, my analytical mind or my rational mind knows better. My emotional mind, like I can start again tomorrow. And then tomorrow doesn't come. And then the next day doesn't come.
Yeah.
It's hard to get back on as long as you have that I'm restricted attitude.
Yes. And then you start to feel like a failure, and then you start to lose trust in yourself. And it can be really hard to pull yourself out of that. I actually just had a call with a client yesterday who turned 55, and she wanted to have our call on her birthday because she was feeling so good and she wanted to celebrate her accomplishments over the last 6 months. And that's what we use that call for. And she had said, we originally talked to each other because she noticed, she wasn't taking care of herself. She wasn't prioritizing her nutrition. She wasn't feeling good. And she just wanted to find something that felt easy and that she could sustain. And so we started in January, and we made very small but very accessible modifications that she continued to feel better and better and better about. And when we had our call just now, she said, my A1C has dropped significantly. So she's no longer diabetic, which is incredible. She's lost weight, which actually wasn't the primary goal. It was for her to feel better about her choices and to wake up feeling good and fall asleep feeling good. And she used to have weight as this driving force, but we turn it around a little bit and we said, okay, if we let go of that, we put that to the side, but we more focus on like, why do you want to make change? What feels good to you? What do you want more of and what do you want less of? That's when everything started to fall into place. And she now has said, I will never diet again. This progress that we've made hasn't felt like work. It's just, things just started to click. And her goal was to feel better in her body. And she's now at the lowest weight she's ever been. She feels the most energized. She's working more. She loves what she does for work, by the way. And she previously had only worked, a day or two a week because she just wasn't feeling herself. And now she's working 5 days a week. And she's like, I love it. I never knew at this age I could actually get like younger, if that makes sense. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because you bring up a really good point about like anchoring in your why, intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation, and figuring out like what is like, how can we anchor in something that is really rock solid as like our North Star as we move forward and stay focused on like our mission when it comes to taking care of ourselves and our nutrition.
Yeah. I asked my doctor one time, I was diagnosed diabetic. I don't know how long ago, but I've been completely off all meds.
Amazing.
My A1Cs are in line for the last 9 months.
Beautiful.
Because diet can, if you're if you're type 2, you can do it with diet. So I'm not generalizing those with type 1 because that's a different story. But it feels better to not be slamming down a handful of chemicals every day just to survive. And you know, those are just other crap going on in your body when you do that. It might be fixing one problem. But when you can do it with diet, what an amazing difference, you know?
And there's no downside.
The other day, our kids come over for dinner once a week, and I have more energy. I'm up and around. I'm taking care of my own garden this year. I'm doing things I've never, well, I shouldn't say never, that I haven't been able to do for years. And I just was in the mood to move. And so my husband and I were dancing in the front room, and somebody came in the door, and like they're early. And I'm like, and my son's like, what happened to my parents? What are you guys doing here?
They're living life.
Because it's different. But it feels better. So my son and I worked together for a while, and I had lost my driver's license due to fainting and dizziness. And so until they could figure it all out, they took it away. So he would drive me to work and back. So he knew how hard it was for me to walk from the parking lot to the building. It was too far.
Right.
And it's like, now I can do it. No problem.
That's amazing.
I don't go to that office, but it's when you change the thought, as long as I was focused on the weight, it never, sure. I lost it and gained it. I lost it and gained it. But the second I focused on other reasons, it's more fun. It's more like, it's okay to special ask for food at the restaurant and not feel embarrassed. It's okay to double check if something has added sugar or not, because everything's made different. And you have to humble yourself enough in those areas to allow that. Or you're going to make bad choices for you, because everybody's choices or needs are different. So for me, there are certain things I have to avoid in order to keep my blood sugars in line.
Right.
So it's just that constant balance. So
and I agree with you. I mean, there's an incredible amount of literature right now stating that you can, in so many cases, reverse type 2 diabetes through lifestyle factors and nutrition and movement and good sleep and stress management. And I think that is such an empowering thing to be reminded of, that you can take control. And there's no downside to that. And you mentioned having fun. I think that is so essential, because there's plenty of ways to move our body. But if we are like dreading it and hating it leading into it, then it's not sustainable. But dancing is fun, or, meeting up with friends and doing Zumba or going for a walk. I mean, it doesn't have to be this big, massive change. It can just be small and consistent. I think that, although that's less sexy, it is like the secret sauce of sustainability, of making those habits that really stick. So, I mean, I commend you for like feeling so good in your choices, just taking a slightly different approach, and you're noticing the impact. That's wonderful.
Oh, big difference. But if you focus on the right thing, you can be your best self. It doesn't have to be all these. And when I say right thing, that's different for everybody also. Right. It's like when you focus on the things that bring you the most joy and the most contentment, those are the right things for you. And if you need help finding those right things, there's a lot of coaches out there. Both of us are coaches. We can help you identify your right things, because I can't pull them out for you. They're you that has to figure them out. But it's nice to have that guide to kind of help explore and bring that into fruition.
And I think it's shifting away from, a coach like telling, their client what to do. Instead, this collaborative effort of, what works for you? What do you want more of? And how can we troubleshoot this together and navigate this together, so that you just every day, you're making progress toward these goals that matter a lot to you, and doing it in a way that works for the individual, I think, is everything. And that's what we're learning. And that's what we know about nutrition, that there's no one size fits all. When it comes to what a normal body weight is, there's no one size fits all. I mean, I think the BMI scale that doctors often tell you about is, or reprimand you for not being within this very ideal range. I mean, we know that that's flawed in so many ways. And so it's, we're shifting away from a lot of our old practices when it comes to, nutrition and wellness. And I think it's definitely evolving for the better. But like you said, teaming up with somebody who is an expert in the field and can support you in a way that works for you is, it doesn't get better than that, in my opinion.
And I agree. I think, I have several coaches I work with for different reasons. I don't think there's a one size fits all. I have my podcast coach. I have my business coach. I have my health coach. There are people that I need in my life to keep that accountability, to say, yes, I did it. Help me set my next goal. Because for me, yes, if you're a do-it-yourself person, yes, you can. I'm not telling you have to have help. But for me, I like that accountability. I like having that person to report to and to work with. Yeah. So for me, it's a benefit.
Yeah. And I think it's a sign of strength too, right? Like when you recognize that you want to make progress in areas and you want to do it in an efficient way, teaming up with somebody who can facilitate that and help you navigate that, I think is really powerful. So I think there's a lot to be said about finding people that can be on your team to support you in, whatever your goals are, whether they're health related or otherwise.
Yes, I agree. And we have definitely gone to our time limit and more, but I really feel like you have brought so much value to our listener, and I am grateful that you were here. So last minute, this is how I close all of my interviews. So people might be getting bored of it, but before we close, what are the last pieces of wisdom or summarizing what the most important factor of our conversation was?
Of course, I think at the end of the day, you are so incredibly important and deserve to feel wonderful and healthy and vibrant as often as possible. And food doesn't have to be something to stress over or restrict or deprive yourself of. You can have wonderfully delicious, healthy eating habits that feel good for you. And that becomes a window and a door into all these other opportunities and ways of achieving a higher quality life. So, like I said, I am such a foodie and I love helping people connect those dots. And I'm happy to be a resource if you need someone to chat with or you want to work together. You can find me on Instagram at maura.wellness, or my website is Maura Rodgers, or Maura with Wellness with Maura, sorry. But yeah, I think, it's such a treat to chat with you as well, Laura. I think we're very like-minded, and it's always good to just have these conversations.
Yeah, I was very uncomfortable when I started these interviews because I'm not the most social person, but I have loved them. Yeah, I've just found the most wonderful people to connect to. So thank you for being out there and for being here and sharing your knowledge. For the listener, I am not a medical professional. I am here for entertainment purposes. I'm glad we have a medical professional with us today, but I have just really loved this. Listeners, stay tuned for our next episode.
Thank you.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Maura Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.